could probably get started. This is a small group. It's great. I really wanted to be able to have a conversation. So, I think we can get started. I can give, just an update on, what we're doing in engineering, and then we can open it up for questions.
Great. Sounds good. I mean, you've basically done my job.
Okay.
which is to welcome everyone and thank you for coming, and and also mention too that this really is an opportunity to have some informal leadership with Dean Jean, who's just been such a tremendous asset and leader to the College of Engineering and UMass Dartmouth in her time here. I'm actually really excited to see the presentation myself. And I'm Ben Jones, by the way. I work in the advancement office on corporate engagement and institutional partnerships, which is really just designed to make it easier for businesses and other external stakeholders to engage with the university, and for faculty and staff to engage with those external stakeholders. But I will let Jean take it from here. This meeting is being recorded. If anyone has an objection, please let me know in chat. But otherwise, know that the meeting's being recorded. So again, thanks for coming. I'll turn this over to Jean.
Great. Thank you, Ben. And thank you everyone for joining me at 9 a.m. on a Saturday for coffee. I've got my coffee here as well. And if you had all told me a year ago that we would be teaching, doing research, having alumni events remotely, I never would have believed you. But here we are. And in the College of Engineering, we've continued to move forward because our research and teaching missions are critical. So I always knew educating engineers was important, but the pandemic really brought it to a new level for me. The first was just seeing the infrastructure associated with treatment of patients who had contracted COVID-19. All the equipment that we see here was developed by engineers. And then there was the data analytics associated with tracking infections and played a significant role in whether and how we open businesses and our education infrastructure in our state. All of that is due to engineers and computer scientists and physicists. And we know it's not perfect. But we need to continue to develop engineers and scientists so that they continuously improve these tools for protecting human health. And this is just one example. Every week, I look forward to my electronic science magazine. And this one article came in April. And while it was really focused on the disease and the transmission of the disease and its impact on human health, I was really inspired by how much the scientific and engineering community already knew about the pathology and the epidemiology of this disease and the tools that went into understanding the epidemiology and pathology. And it really struck me that all the people involved in this were once at a four-year institution like UMass Dartmouth. And so again, it just became apparent, so much more apparent to me, that we needed to prepare engineers, scientists, and our healthcare professionals to work together to address these complex challenges. Also, working from home, I spent a lot of time looking at the data. And in our region, the need for graduates with training in engineering and science far exceeds our current graduation rates. So if we don't continue with our mission, we will have this other crisis down the line. So we need to continue to provide access to an excellent education. So bottom line, what we do educating College of Engineering students is really vital to the region, and it's vital to our planet. And so I needed to think critically about how we adapted during a pandemic so that we could continue our mission. And in the College of Engineering, we started planning for this back in May. We saw the writing on the wall, and we were going to need to figure out how we do this, how we educate our students in the fall. So the first thing that we did was we surveyed our students. We did an electronic survey in the spring, and a couple of things really stood out in the survey of students. They were concerned about their mental and emotional health, social isolation, the quality of online instruction, their ability to be ready to participate in classes. They were concerned about falling behind in their classwork. We also surveyed our alumni in industry to ask them how they were bringing people back to work and doing that safely. And once we had this information, we came up with these 4 guiding principles that were present in every meeting that we had in engineering. The first was that we had to protect at-risk instructors, staff, and our students in everything we were doing. We needed to reduce the density of students on our campus at a given time. That's what was happening in industry, and we knew that was going to be important in reducing the rate of transmission of the virus. Because of this challenge that I saw with social isolation, it was really important to me that we provided every undergraduate an opportunity for at least one course that was face-to-face, that was in person, so that they could come to campus, interact with their students, their classmates in person, and interact with their instructors in person. But knowing that there were going to be students who could not be on campus, who could not participate in person. For example, we have a student who is living with her family in Texas. And so the faculty have accommodated those students so that they can continue in their programs, getting their degree in engineering. And then with our faculty, we looked carefully at all the courses that were going to be offered in the fall. And we developed lists of courses that could be moved online or be taught remotely, and courses that we needed to continue to offer face-to-face, again, in the backdrop of these 4 guiding principles. And then what was very important, and I'm really proud of, is that we developed this culture of safety in our college, so that when students came back, or when parents were sending their students back, they knew they were sending them back to a safe environment. And so it was an all hands on deck moment at that point. And this was during the summer. And our department technicians and our faculty worked together really to address these questions that I had. So I toured all of our teaching spaces and asked, tell me how students and instructors will know when they enter that room that they need a face mask. They're not going to be able to enter or participate if they're not wearing a face covering. And so our marketing department came up with all of these signs. So here is on the front of a civil engineering classroom that masks are required, and these signs are everywhere. How will instructors and students know face masks are required? In electrical engineering, they got creative, and they've got the Arnie with his face mask on, showing on some of our equipment. So our techs got really creative in making this work, and again, building this culture of safety. It was also important for me to know what students do to get into a room, how they should leave a room. So this is a floor plan of our machine shop, and you can see it's really clear. Students enter this door, and this is their flow path. If you were in this room, you would see bright red arrows on the floor. The students know what to do. They put their backpacks here. the instructor stands here, the TA stands here, the cleaning supplies are located here. The pink dots are where students stand. It was really clear what students and the instructors needed to do to be safe in that classroom. And it's working really well. And then again, once students are in a room, where do they know to sit, or where shouldn't they sit or stand? And so the technicians went to Home Depot and bought all of the red duct tape. I think in the month of August, you couldn't find red duct tape at our local Home Depot, but they used it to mark off these areas of where students shouldn't stand. And then in this case, the student would be able to do their work over here. And then again, how will they know the correct practices to clean their work areas and to clean any shared equipment? And so protocols are printed throughout our laboratory. So students know exactly what to do when they come into their workspace. And then this is what it looks like in practice. So we have a student, she's got her face shield and her face mask on, her gloves, her instructions of what to do are right here in front of her on the lab bench. Her classmate is down further on that lab bench. You have a TA who's able to walk through the room, and she has her face shield and her face mask, overseeing the work that these students are doing and that they're safe. And so I was really proud that we were able to bring back students to our campus so they could continue their education in person and in a safe manner. This is just another example of our freshman engineering lab. And typically in this lab, pre-COVID, we would have 4 students in a team. We had to reduce the density. So we have 2 students present during this lab session. The other 2 students are there too. They're just on the student's computer. They're participating remotely. And again, we needed to do this to reduce the density in the classroom, to reduce the rate of virus transmission. What'll happen the following week is that these 2 students who are sitting here will participate remotely, and the 2 students who are participating via Zoom in this lecture will be able to be present in the classroom, interacting with each other and with the instructor in person. And this seems to be working well. And then finally, again, related to this challenge with social distancing, and social isolation, there was this need to build community. So we did a virtual welcome to bring our students back to campus. And I gave them a number of recommendations. The session that you're seeing here was to introduce all of our new students to our student clubs and student organizations, because we really have to leverage our current students to build community. So the first piece of advice that I gave our students is that they are at a nationally ranked research university. And what that means is when our faculty aren't teaching, they're contributing to cutting edge research in their discipline. Students have to be part of that while they're here, at least once, just to see what it's like, and to be part of the excitement of research. So my first piece of advice was to take advantage of undergraduate research opportunities. And this week we will be having a workshop on how they can gear up to participate in undergraduate research while they're here at UMass Dartmouth. The other piece of advice that I gave them is, while they're going to be learning from some of the best instructors the engineering fundamentals, it's so important to connect those fundamentals to practice. And we can do that in many ways, but one way is to do an internship. And so Weekly, there are internship workshops, resume writing workshops, interviewing workshops that are hosted by our Career Center, and we encourage our students to participate in those. We actually have the Internship and Career Center representatives come to at least one of our classes per cohort every year, so that students are aware of the resources available and what they need to do to be competitive for an internship. I'm also proud to share, Diane's here, that we're hosting with Women in Defense, an event in December on women in negotiation. So how they can negotiate job opportunities or research opportunities. We're all experiencing negotiation at some point. So that'll be a really fun event for our students. And again, it will be done virtually. And I also shared that there's so much more to college than just their classes. And I know for me, when I was an engineering undergraduate, the community that I was able to develop through, say, Society of Women Engineers or my professional society had a huge impact on networking, but also making an impact on our local community. So this picture of students on my slide, they're in our Engineers Without Borders organization. They do a lot of work locally with our local schools, but they also do work internationally. So that's a quick overview of how we are educating engineers during COVID. And in all of my presentations to students, I share with them what I love most about UMass Dartmouth is our students, and that we are here for them, and we encourage them to reach out to me, to our student advisors, to our faculty, because we want them to be successful. So thank you for joining me this morning. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see more of you and to answer questions that you might have. Great.
I have a question. I'm so impressed with how you pivoted so quickly and effectively to this new environment that we're working in, and there's enormous challenges, but I'm just really impressed, and so thank you for making this opportunity for for me to hear about this. I was really curious as to how the College of Engineering has been sort of accommodating our new environment. But my question is, have you seen any opportunities? And I guess this this virtual homecoming would be a good example, I guess. But any other opportunities to sort of leverage the online environment in a way that offers and opens up new opportunities that didn't exist in a pre-COVID world for students?
I do. You know, the one thing that I'm seeing is that just for example, research conferences, it's expensive to travel to a research conference. There's registration fees, there's travel fees. Now I'm approving quote unquote travel to conferences, but it's $75. That's the registration fee. And so before it might be difficult to, pay for many undergraduate students to go to a science conference and maybe present their work, but now it's easy. So, the access to presenters, the access to science is certainly improved because of COVID. So that's definitely a benefit. I mean, the other thing that I'm seeing is that we really didn't have ever trained our faculty or our students to learn online. And I didn't talk about this, but over the summer, we have an associate provost for undergraduate education, and he worked with the faculty to develop materials for students so that they could be better prepared to learn online. It's actually a course that they're immediately enrolled in, and they're my courses. That's our learning platform at UMass Dartmouth, our online learning platform. And then of course the faculty have had to do this pivot. And so now they're learning best practices for teaching online. And so, one outcome that I see in the future is maybe more of our faculty will feel comfortable flipping their classes. And basically what that means is that there'll be these short video tutorials that students could view prior to class. And then the class time is focused more on problem solving, teamwork, more interactive work than passive work, because now our faculty are comfortable teaching remotely, developing these online materials. So those are certainly the benefits that I see of this pandemic and our response to the pandemic.
That's fantastic. I think that makes a lot of sense. And also, I think it, at least from my perspective, it's unclear whether and to what extent we'll be going back into the office full time. So I think giving the students the tools to collaborate and work effectively in a virtual environment is going to be very key in the future, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
So Jean, good morning, it's Carol. One of the things that we've been doing in the the workplace side of things is we've had training on, picking up on the last discussion, we've had training on, how do you present on virtually? How do you, make a presentation? How do you communicate? How do you look at the camera? How do you not do like annoying, distracting things that you don't realize that you're doing?
Yeah.
Which are much more amplified on a video screen than they are when you're like standing at the front of a lecture hall or something. I know that I'm not familiar with the detailed curriculum, but I know that the curriculum has typically had some courses that are like communication type courses for engineers, like how to write and speak. And I'm just wondering if those are becoming a morphing into that, what you were just talking about doing it virtually, because I honestly, I'm the same opinion. And I listened to one of the lectures yesterday with Aaron, and he was basically saying he doesn't think it's like getting close to normal until like next June or July.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I've heard from other people as well. So just wondering how we're adapting in that regard, like on the communications piece of things.
Yeah, so for the faculty, the campus immediately put out tools for, where your camera should be located, your background, the lighting in the background. Whether the faculty read those is another question. But the campus certainly provided significant resources. There's Zoom training, and a lot of that now is on YouTube videos that we can watch. So there are so many resources available, particularly for teaching. The student piece, that's a really good one. I know there's certainly Zoom etiquette that students are becoming aware of. But yeah, we could probably do a better job integrating how you communicate via Zoom into our classes. That's a great suggestion, Carol.
Well, it's particularly if it's technical content, because technical content is, as you know, is challenging no matter what.
Yeah.
And actually that's one of the points in the chat yesterday that Aaron was making, was the ability for people that are, trained to help people to be able to communicate in a clear way that other people can understand. And that's always something I've always, like when I give talks to the undergraduates, the different things I've done on campus, you know, they ask the question is, well, what is the one thing that you think I should do? And I'm like, learn to communicate technical material in a way that people can understand. Because if you just can't say all the brilliant things that you know, then you're not going to go that far, you know? So I guess doing that virtually is, you know, is even more of a challenge than trying to stand up in person and explain things, I guess. So that's where that's coming from, because we are recognizing it as a business, as an engineering company. You know, we have to make, you know, we've done interviews now for new projects where instead of going to the interview in person, we're doing it virtually. You know, it's easy for people to be distracted. It's, you know, all these different kinds of things that there's all these tips out there that people, you know, people have, so.
No, that's really good advice. You know, one recommendation I would always make to my students was to videotape themselves while they were presenting, because then you see all your flaws. But we could certainly do more of that with our undergraduates. You know, many of them, our seniors, will be doing presentations of their capstone projects, and that could be a recommendation we make to our instructors. We'll have them practice virtually before they actually do their presentation to our capstone sponsors. Yeah, are there other questions? Yeah, Ben, you're muted, Ben.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm wondering, you know, what, I mean, you've talked a little bit about some of the positive outcomes, you know, as students have been actually in the classroom and faculty have been in the classroom, you know, what are we learning? What are we learning that we might adjust for in the, you know, spring semester?
So I've been meeting with my faculty, and I have a student advisory council, and I met with them recently. And you know, the recommendation that I'm hearing, what's really missing is, you know, in engineering, we, at least for me when I was as an engineer, and I see this with our current engineers, the ability to meet as a group and go through a homework problem that was so important for me in making it through engineering. I see Diane nodding her head. Yeah, I think it's for all of us. Sometimes these problems are just so confusing and complex, but if you're meeting with a group of your fellow students, you're able to get through it together. So we don't have that's hard to do now. And so we are trying to change on the fly. There are tools within our learning platform where faculty can help facilitate that, like create a chat room for the students. And there's other tools like Slack is a great example where students can work through problems together. But it's really the faculty, the instructors need to set that up and make students aware of it. So that's something that we can definitely do. And I think as engineers, we're always continuously improving. And you know, like I said earlier, none of us were trained to do this. We were all trained to teach in a classroom physically. And so you can see all sorts of changes happening over the semester as faculty become more confident and they're getting feedback from their students of new tools that they can use to facilitate engagement of students in the class. Other questions? What recommendations do you have for me? You've all signed on at 9 a.m. in the morning. You know, would you have recommendations for me and how we move forward? And like Carol was saying, it's very likely we're going to be in the same mode of operation in the spring. We are planning for that. I've told my faculty so that they have time to start planning for remote instruction in the spring, and we'll still have our same 4 guiding principles where we want to reduce density, but we want to ensure every student has the opportunity for at least one face-to-face class. So, if I'm open to, recommendations from all of you.
I would say continuing to keep an eye on students and faculty and staff's emotional health. That's definitely from my colleagues. That's something that we're thinking a lot about, and it's something that continues to. The longer this goes on, the more that continues. That pressure increases. So that would be. I can only imagine. It's undergraduate. Is hard enough, especially when it's your last year and you're a senior and you're thinking about all of these things. So I can only imagine that the stress is going to increase over time for students.
Yeah, I agree.
And Jean, I'm wondering, have you actually lost students due to financial hardship?
So I don't know if we've lost students due to financial hardship. I do know we have students who've opted to defer their enrollment or take a leave. We don't survey them to ask why. We honor that request, and that's concerning to me just because of engineering. The continuity in learning is so important. We see this with students coming in from high school. If they finish their math requirements their junior year and they decide not to take math their senior year, they're at a disadvantage when they arrive on campus because they haven't practiced math in a long time, and math is the language of instruction in engineering. So that is, I think, my biggest concern is these students delaying their education. So I am going to work with marketing on reaching out to those students to try to encourage them to enroll in spring, and part of that marketing will be sharing resources available for financial aid. I mean, that is the primary fundraising goal right now is financial aid for students, scholarships for students, and I'm completely behind it. It's a very tough time for our students.
To that point, I would, as as an alumna, I would. I don't know that I would ever expect myself to say this, but I would encourage you to reach out to the alumni network, or the university, more aggressively. Actually, my other alma mater, UConn, is very aggressive right now, texting me, sending emails, sending letters, and I would much prefer. I've always felt this way. I would rather donate to UMass Dartmouth than UConn, just because I feel more strongly about it. So making it easier, making it more accessible for alumni to donate, I think could potentially help.
Yeah, maybe even with some of the slides from your deck here, Jean, just to show how difficult it is, and that these students need our support now.
Okay, that is great to hear. I will definitely do that. Are there other questions?
So is there going to be, I know there was a big push last spring for the Student Emergency Fund as far as a fundraiser. Is there some new version of that? But because that sort of had a, what's the right word? But that was like sort of like a campaign, right? Like it was a very focused type of thing. And I think sometimes people need that type of focus rather than just a broad, please donate. So in other words, please donate, but these are the real focus things that, and that was different. So I guess I'm just wondering if there's plans for something similar like that for later this fall, or for, beginning of next semester, where it's like a very focused type of thing. Because I do think some people would find that helpful.
So Ben, do you want to speak to what's happening in the advancement office?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just posted a link to the Access to Excellence campaign, which is something that started in the spring with a real push to make sure that academically qualified students who were experiencing barriers to re-enrollment because of the pandemic have the resources they need to to continue. And there's traditional financial aid, but we also have a lot of students who've lost income from summer jobs, and have other other needs that may not have been factored in with their financial aid package. So the major push is to make sure that students have the resources they need to succeed. And in any normal year, we still have about 1,000 students who experience a gap between the financial aid package and what they're able to contribute of an average of $3,000 that prevents them from from re-enrolling. So that's sort of a normal situation for our students, but the pandemic has definitely made it more challenging. And I did post a link to the Access to Excellence campaign in the in the chat box. It talks a little bit about what we're trying to do. And we do give donors the option as well of designating what college that might support as well. But it's a real need, and we're trying to get ahead of it. We have gotten some CARES money to help out students. We've made a major push to get technology in the hands of students. I'm actually this weekend working on another CARES Act related proposal. And Jean, thank you very much for so much of your great updates, because I'll be using some of that language in the proposal. So, our students are nothing if not ambitious and striving, and we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that finances don't get in the way of them succeeding, with the help of, and alums and friends have been incredibly generous, and we hope that will continue. And Jocelyn, I think we might have you do a commercial for us.
I'm always here to support, Ben.
Right, appreciate it. Well, having children of preachers.
I inherited those genes.
That's right.
Great. I guess what I'm also hearing is that a personal email from me would go a long way. So I can work with the advancement office on that, and certainly send a link. We are recording this. I could send a link to this presentation so people are aware of what we're doing.
I think that would be fantastic, and I just want to say how pleased I am to hear, and how it's really, really great to hear in these hard times how UMass Dartmouth is continuing to pull together as a community.
Yeah, you see these the news that enrollments are down at universities, but in engineering, our numbers are actually up over last year. Last year, our percentage of transfer students was about 14. This year, it's a little over 21% of our incoming class. So we certainly are meeting a need for students who want a degree in engineering. All right, so you all know where I am. I'm happy to meet with any of you. Diane knows this, Carol knows this. Please email me if you've got ideas. I just want to talk. I'm happy to meet. And now, yeah, with COVID, we're all accessible. You don't need to drive to campus. You just turn on your computer. So thank you all again for joining me this morning, providing your feedback and encouragement. I hope I see you all in person sooner rather than later.